but it truly is today Kansas City versus the world when it comes to this conversation. Because I don't know anybody that has actually said, you know what, Andy Reid's got a good point. Patrick Mahomes has a good point in talking about the offsides call on Kadarius Toney on what would have been the go-ahead touchdown. Wouldn't have meant they would have won the game, but would have been the go-ahead touchdown with a little over a minute left in that game against the Bills yesterday. A call that we've seen much more often this season, saw it a little bit more often last season, but a call, quite frankly, Kerry, that I think we all could be unified in saying was the right call. Kadarius Toney was offsides.
He was offsides. You know what this really depicts that's really going on with Kansas City? It's like you and a girlfriend, right? You let stuff slide. And it's going to be okay. I'll be fine. It's not that important. And then that one time when it's really important for you and not for them, and it makes you blow up, I think that's what we're seeing here with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. I mean, you look at the last couple of weeks, especially the last week against Philly, where they had the call that didn't go their way, when obviously it was a blatant pass interference that doesn't get called. There's carryover from there, right? So they're trying to be professionals, do it the right way, not say anything. You know, they let that slide last week. But when it happens again in the next game, it just causes for a little bit of a blow up there.
And that's what they're saying in Kansas City.
Right.
And the rest of the world is saying, what about the 15-yard penalty that was called on Green Bay when Patrick Mahomes wasn't out of bounds?
Absolutely.
What about the penalty that was called in the Super Bowl that allowed you to run down the clock and end up beating the Philadelphia Eagles and taking 2 minutes off? What about the hit out of bounds on Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game? We could go on calls that have benefited the Kansas City Chiefs.
Absolutely.
And that's why no one feels sorry for them.
Oh, no.
There's absolutely no one that feels sorry for him. In fact, they're piling on. Patrick Mahomes' comments after the game on the field near Josh Allen that open mics picked up.
Yeah.
The NFL's reportedly looking into those comments. Here's the thing about it, because we're about to hear from Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes' stance didn't change after any cooling off period or after 15 minutes after the game ended. Right. This is what Patrick Mahomes had to say after the Chiefs lost to the Bills last night in Kansas City.
I mean, not only for me, but just for football in general. I mean, just to take away greatness like that. I mean, for a guy like Travis to make a play like that, and who knows if we win. As I know, as fans, you want to see the guys on the field decide the game. And that's why last week I didn't say anything about the flag that didn't get called on the Marquez. And so, I mean, they're human, man. They make mistakes. But, I mean, it's every week we're talking about something, and all I can do is go out there and give everything I have, and I'm proud of the guys because that's what we did, and it was a great football game that ended – another great football game that just ended like that. It's just tough to swallow. To happen on a flag change the outcome of a game in that moment, I mean, I've played 7 years, never had offensive offsides called. I mean, that's elementary school. We talk about, I mean, you point to the ref, do all that different type of stuff, and it doesn't get called. And if it does, they warn you, and there was no warning throughout the entire game. And then you wait till there's a minute left in the game to make a call like that. It's just tough, man. I mean, it's lost for words, man. It's tough because regardless if we win or lose, man, just for it to end with another game and we're talking about the refs, man, it's just not what we want for the NFL and for football.
So this is Patrick Mahomes piling on to this officiating conversation that's been prevalent throughout the NFL. Now piling on when it's convenient for them. That's basically what this is. But I'm so glad that you're sitting next to me today because you've been on an NFL field. You've lined up with a receiver who I'm sure has pointed to the referee. Take us through that scenario because we're going to hear from Andy Reid because Andy Reid cleared something up earlier today that I think is a big part of what Kansas City is complaining about, and they're no longer going to have a leg to stand on. But take us through that scenario. Is it different when you're closer to midfield as opposed to the sidelines? What are the stuff that you experienced in situations like this in the game?
No, it's just a standard play, right? But I think that's the part I think we're losing the big picture of here, right? There's something fundamentally wrong with the Chiefs in general. And I've talked about it before. I think there is a little bit of a lackadaisical approach to what they're doing, even with the play calling. It's a little late. Like everything about them seems like a little too laxed. So if you're going through the season, you're going through a progression of doing the fundamentals right and doing it and really doing it with intent, you don't make those mistakes. So you can blame it on the ref. You can blame it on whatever you want to blame it on. But, you know, the process of coming up to the line of scrimmage, putting your foot in the right place, pointing to the ref. Like, it becomes academic at certain points, but when it becomes academic, that's when you start to lose. If you're not paying attention to the small details as an athlete, as a performer, anything in his life, if you're not paying attention to the small details, that's when trouble comes into play.
How often in your playing days, and again, this has been a bit of a point of emphasis in the National Football League, do you remember an official saying, you need to back it up just a little bit?
Ooh, a few times. It happens. But for the most part, if you point and you get the head nod, or they don't say anything back to you, you're good. So I don't know in the operation of Tony coming to the line, did he ever point to the ref? I don't know. But if he did and the ref gave him the thumbs up or didn't say anything, then that would be cause for concern.
Andy Reid gave us that answer earlier today.
Normally he looks over to the sideline and just gets an okay.
There you go.
And on that one, he just happened not to. So that would be the coaching point. Make sure you check with the guy on the side just to see if you're aligned. I mean, he's not lining up offsides on purpose. And listen, he was 2 inches away from or an inch from being legal. And like I said, you can argue both sides of it. It's for both teams. There are things that happen where people, just it happens like that. So I guess the league's trying to clean that up from what I heard by one of the broadcasters last night. So I don't, whatever.
I like Andy Reid. I don't think Andy Reid's full of BS, but he's wrong in saying that both sides can be argued. I don't think that both sides can be argued, and here's why, and it goes back to what Patrick Mahomes said earlier, which is irrelevant in this case. The play that happened was irrelevant because the penalty was called immediately. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like the official watched Travis Kelce catch the pass, then throw it across the field as a lateral to Kadarius Toney, watched him run into the end zone, and then say, you know what? Penalty time. No, it was immediate. It could have been a 2-yard gain. Right. It could have been an incomplete pass. That's the point that is completely irrelevant, and why I don't think that the outcome of the play doesn't have any effect on this call. And because of what ended up happening, Kansas City feels like they were robbed of it. Sure. But in essence, the penalty was the penalty, and the penalty was the penalty as soon as the ball was snapped because his foot was on the line. There's no way that the referee could pick up the flag in that instance, Kerry.
100%, yeah.
And I think that's what the Kansas City Chiefs wanted the officials to do, to convene, to say, you know what, there is no foul for offensive offsides. And you know what would have happened then? You know exactly what would happen then. Because right now it's Kansas City against the world. The world would have said, you know what? The NFL is rigged.
Yeah.
The NFL is in cahoots for the Kansas City Chiefs to make the playoffs and get home field advantage, and they don't want to knock out Patrick Mahomes. But that is essentially what the Kansas City Chiefs wanted the referees to do, was to pick up the flag because they made one of the greatest plays in regular season, if not NFL history, because Kadarius Toney's foot was on the line of scrimmage. And it doesn't matter if it was an inch or not. The pool reporter asked the officials after the game, he's saying it was bad enough that I couldn't even see the football.
Yeah.
It's a black and white. I think that we're all united in all of this, and Kansas City just has their red and yellow glasses on, and for some reason feels that they are the victim in all of this.
Yeah, I mean, somebody has to be the victim, right? I don't think there's ever going to be a situation where somebody doesn't feel a little slighted about whatever's happened in the past, right? So, there's a place of, I think, growth and maturity where down the line you can be like, oh, okay, now that I have clarity about this situation, it was fair. But in the immediate aftermath of something like that, where such a competitive game, competitive sport, somebody's trying to win, somebody's trying not to lose, you're going to have visceral reactions to that. But it's, I think a little bit later they'll figure out that it was fine. They made the right call.
I've always felt that penalties shouldn't be reviewed except one penalty. Okay, one penalty. Mm-hmm. I feel face masks are pretty obvious. Mm-hmm. For some reason, we miss them. And I feel that they are just absolutely egregious when we see a head turn, whether a guy got a face mask or not. And I'm not saying allow a review of face masks. But when we talk about reviewing penalties, a lot of this is What does the ref think? What do you think? That's where the problems in the NFL are happening right now. Is a lot of it's subjective because one guy thinks one thing and another ref would think another thing.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with different crews each week.
Mm-hmm.
This is plain as day. This isn't and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but this isn't this crew would call it, that crew wouldn't call it sort of thing. This is pretty much plain that a guy's foot is on the line. And that's why I think that Patrick Mahomes now trying to jump in on the officiating questions that have come into the league this year. There seems to be a lot more about the inconsistencies in what we have, and I know that they're coming off the loss to Green Bay and now lose again. To your point, I think that's all building up, but when we talk about the problems of officiating and where we are, this is something that is just, it's not even subjective. You know what it is. Mm-hmm. He's offsides. Plain as day. That's it. End of story. It's not like pass interference or was there holding? Was there illegal contact after 5 yards? None of that. This is plain as day.
This definitely doesn't fall in the same basket as the bad officiating calls that we've seen. Very blatant. Sometimes you do think as players they don't call everything, and that's the thing. I think that's where the gray area is when it is subjective. Even though you said this is black and white. A lot of times, some things don't get called. Holdings don't get called when they're blatant holdings, and sometimes they do. And so that's where the subjectivity comes in. At this one, the fact that we have a freeze frame that shows him right now as it's on live, show him offsides. It's hard to combat that though.
The flag was thrown as Patrick Mahomes was dropping back to pass.
Yeah.
He hadn't even set his back foot yet to throw.
Yeah.
So, again, that's the point of the penalty.
Mm-hmm.
And I also tried to compare it because I think that there are questions in officiating that we deal with in other sports. I'm sure baseball balls and strikes are questioned.
Yeah.
But in basketball, okay, is a foul on a shot with 3 seconds left the same as a foul as it is with 3 seconds into the first quarter?
Exactly.
Same sort of thing. This is not that.
Yeah.
This is, does a guy step out of bounds or not? Did the guy step in the backcourt on a backcourt violation?
Yeah.
Was his foot on the line?
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is. This isn't a travel. This isn't a shooting foul. This is none of that. Was his toe on the line? Was Kevin Durant's toe on the line in the Eastern Conference semifinals in 2021 in Game 7?
It was close.
But it was.
Yeah, it was on the line.
We saw it, and it's a 2-point bucket, and the Bucks are NBA champions weeks later. That's what this is. Plain as day. And maybe you're right that in due time the Kansas City Chiefs will realize what's going on, but I think you're right. There is a bigger issue. Kadarius Toney has had some awful primetime games.
Yeah.
There's the drops that he had early in the season, and now you've got this scenario. This seems to be something that's building up. I think it's completely taken away from the Buffalo Bills victory. Kansas City has no one to blame but themselves.
And the irony in it all is he's the one that caught the pass to score the touchdown, which is just so funny to me. Like he's the one offsides, and he's the one that ends up taking it in the end zone for a touchdown that does not count because of him. It's just ironic.
I had wondered if this was a planned play, and then we do research, and Andy Reid's been telling Travis Kelce stop with the lateral stuff. We saw it against the Broncos in a game, and so this was not a planned play. And if you don't believe me, if you get an opportunity, watch what Kadarius Toney was doing as Travis Kelce was running with the ball, because he had no idea the football was coming his way. I thought he was checking something with his gloves. I thought he was checking something with his hand warmer. I think he looked away at one point and maybe moved his hand towards a referee because he maybe felt he was interfered with or something. But then all of a sudden he looks up and the football's coming his way.
Yeah.
And then he ends up taking it to glory. I'm surprised he didn't drop that, to be honest.
Yeah, it would have been.
That's me piling on.
Yeah, that's part of the course that he drops the ball on the lateral. But no, it was not a planned play. You can see it just from the way it was happening live. It was full on instincts by Travis, and he happened to see him over there lollygagging a little bit behind the play because he should have been up more trying to block, but he's in the background, kind of getting ready for the next play, and catches the ball and scores, which is it's so funny that he actually scored and was the one offside. So yeah, it was very ironic for me.
Just like Dee Ford lining up offsides in the AFC Championship game that would have sent the Chiefs to the Super Bowl against the Patriots 5 years ago. This on the other side of the ball. But I think you're right. There's a much bigger issue in Kansas City.
It is.
That's a game that they should have won. Buffalo jumped out to a quick start. Mm-hmm. Then the Chiefs got a turnover, were able to turn it into points, and then pretty much kept the Bills at bay ever since. But you didn't have Pacheco last night. You're hoping that game breaker would be Kadarius Toney. It looks like it's going to be Rashee Rice right now, who had a decent game. But, yeah, there are problems in Kansas City, and it may not be as easy to get back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I picked Buffalo to win that game going in anyway. And to see them jump out and actually – come in with a little bit of energy, because Buffalo has some stuff going on that we'll talk about later as well. But, yeah, they came in, fought hard, and that's a hard place to play anyway. I mean, I played in Arrowhead quite a bit, and my first ever game was in Arrowhead, and I know how impactful that place is in that building. So for them to go in and get that win, let's give Buffalo more credit here, and they got it done.
We'll do that.